You know how we sometimes just skip over the genealogies in the Bible? I mean, it's a long list of names, right? But what if I told you that buried inside just two little verses in Matthew's family tree is this incredible story? We're talking wicked kings, a boy king hero, the complete collapse of a nation, and a divine curse that nearly stopped history in its tracks. Well, today, we're going to unpack all of it. Because that is exactly what this is. This is so much more than a list of who begat who. It's a high-stakes drama about the royal line of David and how it was pushed right to the edge of disappearing forever, only to be saved in a way no one could have seen coming. It's history, it's suspense, it's theology, all wrapped up in one. So, here's our game plan for today. We'll start with the kings right before everything fell apart. Then we'll get into the line of wicked kings who really dragged the nation down, followed by the one righteous king who tried to pull it all back. From there, we'll see the tragic fall into the Babylonian exile, uncover this shocking curse on the royal heir, and finally, we'll see why this messy, broken family tree is actually one of the most important parts of the story. All right, let's set the stage. We're zeroing in on this specific generation of kings who were in charge during the final, totally chaotic decades of the kingdom of Judah. So the verse says, "And Hezekiah begat Manasseh, and Manasseh begat Amon, and Amon begat Josiah." Right there in one sentence, you have this wild swing from one of the absolute worst kings in Judah's history to one of its very best. It's like a snapshot of a kingdom having a complete identity crisis. And that crisis really kicks off with this father-son combo who were, well, to put it nicely, they were just awful kings. Let's get to know Manasseh and his son Amon. Okay, first off, the length of Manasseh's reign is just mind-boggling. 55 years. Think about that. That's over half a century he spent deliberately tearing down all the good his own father, King Hezekiah, had done. He didn't just kind of let idolatry happen. He made it national policy. And the corruption was deep. I mean, this wasn't some small stuff. He rebuilt pagan shrines, put up altars to foreign gods like Baal, and even defiled the temple in Jerusalem itself by putting idols inside it. The text even mentions him getting into witchcraft and the absolutely horrific practice of child sacrifice. He basically drove the entire nation right off a spiritual cliff. You'd hope his son Amon might turn things around, but nope. He just doubled down on his dad's wickedness. The Bible's really blunt about it. He walked in all the ways of his father, served the same idols. There was no change of heart, just more of the same. But here's the twist. While his father ruled for 55 years, Amon only lasted 2. He was assassinated by his own officials in his own palace. This tells you the kingdom wasn't just spiritually corrupt anymore, it was politically unstable. The whole system was rotting from the inside out with violence and betrayal. Now, just when it seems like the line of David is completely lost, like there's no coming back from this much evil and chaos, the story takes a huge, unexpected turn. Out of the wreckage of Amon's reign comes his son, Josiah, and he is a genuine glimmer of hope. The contrast is just incredible. It's night and day. You've got the grandfather, Manasseh, who goes down as the most wicked king, and then you have the grandson, Josiah, who's seen as one of the most righteous kings since David himself. One guy filled the temple with idols, the other found God's law there. Talk about generational whiplash. And Josiah's story is just amazing. He becomes king when he's only 8 years old. As a young man, he orders the temple to be cleaned up and repaired, and in the process, they find the book of the law, which had been lost for who knows how long, and this discovery kicks off a massive nationwide revival. Josiah tears down all the idols his grandpa built, he brings back proper worship, and he leads the nation in this huge Passover celebration. It really felt like maybe, just maybe, things were turning around. But tragically, the hope of Josiah's reign just didn't last. As good as his reforms were, they just couldn't erase generations of sin. And after he dies, the kingdom completely falls apart with breathtaking speed. And the very next verse in Matthew's list is where the other shoe drops. It connects the great reformer, Josiah, not to some amazing successor, but directly to the single worst thing that ever happened in Israel's history, the Babylonian exile. The kingdom, the temple, the nation itself, it's all about to burn. Just look at how fast it all crumbles after Josiah's tragic death in battle. His sons and his grandson, whom Matthew calls Jeconiah and his brethren, are just this series of weak, bad rulers. One guy lasts 3 months before being carted off to Egypt. The next is basically a puppet for foreign powers. And then his grandson, Jeconiah, is on the throne for a mere 3 months before he's captured and taken to Babylon. In less than 25 years, everything Josiah worked for is gone, and Jerusalem is destroyed. The promise to David looks like it's officially dead.
But the crisis actually gets even worse. It's not just that the king is now a prisoner in Babylon. It's that this specific king, Jeconiah, the rightful heir, has a divine curse placed directly on him and his family line.
So here's the problem. It comes from a prophecy in the book of Jeremiah. God says that Jeconiah should be written down as childless. Now, this didn't mean he wouldn't literally have kids. It meant that in the royal records, his line was finished. None of his descendants would ever prosper and sit on the throne of David again. This feels like the final nail in the coffin for the messianic promise. And that brings us to the central puzzle. If the Messiah has to be a descendant of David to be the rightful king, but the main royal line through Jeconiah is now cursed so that no one from it can ever be king again, how does that work? It seems like a complete dead end, a paradox with no solution. And this is where the Gospels present this absolutely brilliant solution. Look at this. On the left, you have Matthew, who traces Jesus' legal line through his father, Joseph. This is the royal line, going right through King Solomon and, yes, the cursed King Jeconiah. This gives Jesus the legal right to the throne. But on the right, you have Luke, who traces Jesus' biological line through his mother, Mary. Her family also goes back to David, but through a different son, Nathan. It completely bypasses the cursed line of Jeconiah. So Jesus has the legal claim to the throne through Joseph, but he isn't physically descended from the cursed king. It is an incredible answer to what looked like an unsolvable problem.
So why do we care? Why spend all this time digging through this old, complicated family tree? Well, because it reveals something absolutely crucial about the kind of story we're being told.
Ultimately, what this genealogy in Matthew is showing us, loud and clear, is that this story isn't about a line of perfect, heroic people. I mean, not even close. It is full of corruption, failure, disaster, and chaos. The real hero of this genealogy isn't any of the kings. The hero is the promise itself, a promise that God keeps alive, weaving it through wicked kings, through national collapse, and even through a royal curse. It shows us that the whole plan was never counting on human perfection. It was always counting on divine faithfulness. And that changes everything.